Hello traders, this is Rich Derrick from tradesight. This is a look at our scans for the market leaders for this coming session. This is going to be for Wednesday, April 3rd, 2013. We're definitely biased to the downside here in NASDAQ, but you're going to see a more acute bias as we go through some of the other groupings of stocks as well. Really big day in Amgen. Some of these biotechs are starting to blow off now. Amgen's 3.5% above the open, so definitely keep an eye on these for exhaustion. We've got an upside continuation in the Biogen, the BIIB. Not quite as strong as Amgen today, but it did meet the CPS upside conditions to print that signal. So definitely keep an eye on those. But keep in mind we're very, very late in the overall scheme of things here. Definitely seeing some real good weakness in SanDisk. SanDisk tends to like to be a $50 stock, so that could easily pull back there. Netflix seeing some good weakness there as well. That's about 2% below the VWAP, which means there's a good deal of selling pressure even late in the day. So it's going to have a very, very weak finish. The Netflix is 4% below the open. China on the other hand is the only one that's really sticking out that's particularly strong outside of the biotechs. That's up about 4.5% above the open and on pretty good volume. Moving on to the financials, not too much damage here. They're actually fairly well paired off. CME's got a camouflage buy signal. NASDAQ, NDAQ, not on this list. Big gap down and it's closing near the lows. I want to keep an eye on that. That's got plenty of energy in it. NYX is also trading a good amount of volume, 2 times the typical run rate. Onto the energy stocks, these are more biased to the sell side again, just like the rest of the market. Valero's getting hit very hard today, down 6.5% off of the open on increased volume VLO. It's got a downside CPS signal, so I definitely keep an eye on that one for tomorrow. I'm going to have that on my list. As far as the generals go, the generals here are all populated on the sell side of the ledger. There's nothing here on the buy side. Quite a few CPS sell signals, which tend to be the strongest of them. This UNH is had a very big gap up, but as you can see, it's just barely hovering above the open on very, very large volume. And it does have a differential sell signal because it's got a fairly decent tail on top of it, so it's well enough off of the high. So definitely keep an eye on that. This is coming after an extended run to the upside in the UNH. The housing stocks all to the sell side here, pretty consistent. The transports are kind of flaky. Some of these are really on the cusp of a breakdown. Keep an eye on Kansas, KSU. That one's not on this list, but that is threatening to break down. There's a big level there, about 106.25. If it loses that, it's going to start to roll to the downside. And finally, the commodities names are all fairly weak here. There's a lot of weakness in the precious metals, but outside of that, there's quite a few sloppy setups there. Freeport Copper FCX is still fairly weak, down 1.5% below the open. U.S. Steel's getting hammered today, 4.5% below the open, and more than 2 times the typical volume with a downside CPS signal. All those names are definitely going to be on my watch list for tomorrow. All right, well, as always, thank you for listening, and this has been Rich Derrick for tradesight.